Last Minute Blues Podcast with Donnie, Alex, Jeremy, and Jeff Burton.
I'm sorry to... All right, hold on. I'm sorry to start off with a giggle, but I wrote in my notes last night, Nathan Walker has very big balls. And I was reading that as we were starting, and I just started to giggle. I'm sorry. I apologize. How are you? Welcome to the Last Minute Blues Podcast. I'm Donnie Fandango, joined in studio by Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN. Gentlemen, what's going on? I'm sorry to get it started on such a weird way.
I'm sorry. That's the title of our podcast this week. We're going to now put titles on our podcast.
Title? That should be the name of the podcast.
Nathan Walker has big balls.
It just seems like last night, any time that he could try to start anything with literally anyone, he was doing it. And I just love it. And then also, too, in the first period intermission, had a little interview with him, and his answers were very brief and very short, but it was, we got to get going. We got to take it to them. We got to, we talked about Nathan Walker a ton. I just love absolutely what he brings to the team. And dude's got big balls.
Yeah, a lot of times when you got a guy who's 6'2", 6'3", they don't bring it like that. I'd be interested to see how Nathan Walker would be 6'2", 215. That'd be something.
But put Nathan Walker's mindset into Toropchenko's body.
Yeah.
Like, what would that look like?
But he just brings it, and you're right. Like, there are so many situations where you look down on the ice, and if Nathan Walker has an opportunity to just kind of, stir it up, just get an edge, get something going, he does it. And that's probably a result of his whole career needing to be a guy who made a difference just to catch people's eye.
I mean, you could tell that dude, he does not take a minute off, ever. Ever.
He was standing there after a whistle, at the chest of Nikita Zadorov. And I thought Nathan Walker was going to try and go at it with him. And I'm like, boy, you want to spark. That's how you do it. This guy's 6'6" on the ice, and Nathan Walker's just got the smirk on his face.
Yeah.
But you saw that happen in the Seattle Kraken game earlier this season, where his team was stale and he walked up and he took a hack at somebody's legs, got into the fight, and the next thing you know, they mounted that 3-goal comeback. I
just hate that, one of the things that we've said multiple times already this year is, and not that last night is an example of this necessarily, but having a guy like Nathan Walker that kind of constantly has to try to drag the team into battle. You know what I mean? Like I love what he does. And I'm not saying that he's necessarily the only one, but he seems to be the one that's consistently doing it every single freaking opportunity that he gets. And I wish that he wasn't the only one like that.
Yeah, well, you're relying on last night you're playing Foxa as your third line, and you're putting them out there in pretty critical situations. You're relying on that line to be your energy line. And it's similar because Barbashev, Sundqvist, and Steen was that for the team, right? That's what everyone references. That was that energy line that they throw out there. But that was a dude in Steen who had scored 30 goals in the National Hockey League. Barbashev was a first-round draft pick. Like, Nathan Walker is not that, nor is Radek Foxa, nor is Alexei Toropchenko. So it's a real different circumstance. Now, it's good to have. You need those guys, but you can't be relying on them 13 minutes a night, specifically in the offensive zone when you need a big face-off to tie the game.
So, guys, as I was driving in this morning and kind of thinking about the game last night, thinking a bit about the flipping debacle on Saturday night, which was horrible to watch. And I don't even know why I finished watching the third period now that I'm thinking about it on Saturday night. But one thing that I got to keep in mind is that this is happening without Robert Thomas, Nick Leddy, and Philip Broberg. 3 gigantic pieces to this puzzle. That said, you could just see last night in the third period after Boston scored that, man, that ice had turned, and it was all heading in the Bruins' direction. So it's just really tough for me right now to, sort of balance here's the guys that are missing. We're still, trying to grow this thing. And try to not get too pissed off or not get too irritated. But I didn't get too irritated last night. I just felt like that was coming. Yeah. Like that third period, that just felt like that was going to happen.
Yeah, we've talked about it. The margin for error for this team, even with Thomas and Broberg, was not very big.
Right.
And so you lose your 2 best players, and now you're trying to stay afloat until they get back, which, oh, by the way, is not tomorrow. It's another month. It really is. So, and then when you get those guys back, where are you in the standings? And so I think we continue to say this is, take the situation for what it is, but you want them to at least be competitive and not have nights like they did in the 8-1 loss the other night, and not have third periods like they did last night, which a different game, probably a tougher loss in the big picture
Yeah.
than even that Capitals loss was, because the way you lose it, you're right. And so to go into that third period up 2-0 and then be in the locker room 25 minutes later listening to players talk about how they, played too safe, it's just hard to comprehend for a team that kind of, again, knew what was on the line, just like they knew what was on the line in the third period against the Capitals.
It really felt like last night was and maybe you could carry it over from Washington, the start of the mental fragileness coming back for the Blues. The third period against the Washington Capitals felt like it was headed in that direction because you were already trailing by a couple of goals. One turnover made it a 3-goal deficit. But think back to that second period against Washington where Logan Thompson made like 4 unbelievable saves. Doesn't that remind you of last season when the Blues couldn't break a rookie goaltender or a guy that they'd never seen before, and you're like, what is going on right now? And then they just couldn't beat him, and the next thing you know, they just stopped playing. That felt like that Capitals game. That Boston Bruins game felt exactly like Braden Shen said, to where they were playing safe. That first goal went in, and it was a turnover in the neutral zone where Parayko was trying to skate through. Typically 99 times out of 100, he pulls that play off. Turns the puck over, you get an odd man rush, and that goal went in. It felt like every single Blues player was like, oh, crap, here it comes again.
Yeah.
Like the snowball was coming. And that was not in the team's game in the first 10-12, because every single time, the San Jose Sharks game is a perfect example. The Blues would score, San Jose would score another goal, and it was like, oh, bleep, this is the snowball right here. And what did they do? They pushed back in the third period. The Vegas game, you were up by 1, and then you were down by 2, and then you climbed back to tie that game back up. That team was not doing the same thing that they did versus Washington and Boston. That was the biggest concern for me, and it's not just because of that Boston Bruins game. It's like, are you falling back into that pit of when one thing goes wrong, we can't overcome that?
Yeah, Donnie, I think they're in the pit, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it is very much seeming that way, because what was really rad is it seemed like in the first period, second period even, and I tried to I didn't have anything going on last night, so I was able to really watch the game. And it seemed like the Blues were doing a nice job of clogging up the neutral zone, making it kind of tough for Boston to get in. And then just kind of over time, it feels like sort of, oh, and I didn't even think about this. The Bruins only had 5 friggin' defensemen in that third period last night, too.
Yeah, because Lindholm went out with that blocked shot.
And they talked about that. After the game, they said that we talked going into that third period about
knowing
5 defensemen. Let's get the forecheck. Let's wear these guys down. Let's do it. And it didn't work. And I think that leads to the bigger picture here. We can talk about the fragileness of the team. I think you're right, Alex. The big picture is this team can't score. You're talking about, 9 of 16 games now that they've scored 2 or fewer goals.
Mm-hmm.
And they've lost 8 of those 9 in which they've scored just the 2 goals or fewer.
And you know what's wild about it? You go from when Robert Thomas was on the team up until when he was injured, and you separate them. The Blues are only dropping like a half a goal per game, which is still a lot, but it's only half a goal per game. The goals allowed per game since Robert Thomas has been gone is like 2.7 to 4.3. So defensively, they're massively struggling. But on the offensive side, man, it's felt like the offense hasn't been there even when they were healthy. I mean, we were talking about Broberg carrying the team on the offensive side, and we were still complaining about, hey, they don't have the right mixture in the forward combinations. We were talking about Booch at the center spot, and you were taking some of those wingers away. I think the injuries, if anything, made a clearer picture of where the Blues are lacking in certain areas. And right now, it's somebody that can finish in your top 6. You just don't have that guy. I mean, the breakaway last night against Boston, you need to finish there. But you also are really lacking that centerman because Buchnevich was that guy that was the finisher. So, if anything, it's like the injuries, as bad as they are, they've also provided a little clarity of where this Blues team is at.
So, just to go back to the Robert Thomas thing real quick, and maybe just to ask a stupid question. So, not only are you missing what he is able to do offensively, his unbelievable ability to find people and to pass and to make those beautiful passes, but you miss him in the faceoff circle, and you miss him dearly playing against the best players on the other team every single night. So we are seeing, like you say, the effect of Robert Thomas being gone in all areas of the ice. And that's just not an easy thing to replicate, replace. You can't really just muster that kind of thing up. I think it gives you, if anything, more of an appreciation for really how truly great of a two-way player Robert Thomas is.
Yeah, I think for anybody who didn't see that, and I know people outside St. Louis don't necessarily fixate on Robert Thomas, but sometimes he gets left out of those lists, top 10 centers in the league. And I know there's some good ones up there, but he definitely belongs. I think we're seeing it now. But you're right, offensively, defensively, face-off, they've had to force Buchnevich in there, even though that was the plan with Thomas. But now it's really the plan because he's got to play against the other team's top line. And he's doing an admirable job, but it's just not him. That's not his game. But where I'll make the point here is, not only do you lose Thomas's, let's say, 20 goals a season that he could score this season, but Robert Thomas is that guy who feeds everybody else's offense. So
you lose the 70 assists.
Yeah, you lose the 70 assists. So, when you're trying to set up teammates, whether it be Kyrou or Saad or Shen or whomever, that's – if you had to rank the things that you really miss with Robert Thomas, I would say that defense is probably first because that is such a huge part of the game to keep the other team's top line off. But I think that what you're missing now, and we can see it, is his ability to set up other guys and create offense, and they're not getting that. They 16 shots on net last night at 5-on-5. Like, that is not going to cut it. They're not getting the shots through. They're not getting the rebound. They're not getting anything right now offensively.
Because I'll be the glass half full guy. If anything, it's given you a little bit of optimism, right? Because now you've just realized what Donnie and JR just mentioned. You've got a number one centerman. Like, you've got a top centerman in the National Hockey League in Robert Thomas, and you're seeing that without him on the ice. Philip Broberg, in my opinion, is the exact same scenario, because without Philip Broberg, now the Blues are relying solely on Falk Parayko and Ryan Suter, and at some point you figured that dam was going to break because this guy's not going to be able to continue to play 25 minutes a night like he has been. You don't have that second pair to rely on 20 minutes a night like Broberg. I'm really fascinated how a front office evaluates a team right now, because maybe in the back of their minds this was always supposed to happen. You were going to go through your lumps once again. That's the whole retool process. Maybe some of us got out over our skis where we were like, yeah, this team could compete for a playoff spot. But how do you evaluate it when you don't have your best players? Do you put more onus on the other guys that are supposed to be your top players? Does that put them into the spot that they probably shouldn't have originally been considered in? Meaning, like, are they a second-line winger rather than a top-line winger? Are they a third-line winger? Is that how you evaluate something like this if you're a front office?
So this is not directly correlated. I'm sorry that this popped into my head as you were saying that, Alex.
Nathan Walker's got big cojones. Me too, man. Me too.
But guys, if we're struggling,
got big balls.
If we're struggling to score goals, which we are, then why is Zach Bolduc scratched last night? And why? And here's what I'm thinking more than anything else: why is he not given top 6 minutes every single night? We know he's young. We know he's got a ton of talent. We know there's going to be nights where he has off nights, but don't you have to put the kid in some kind of position on a regular basis to succeed and to sort of find his footing? And I'm not saying that they haven't given him a chance, but this is an amazingly talented young man. I just feel like there's something missing here. And then if he's going to be scratched at all, I feel like you send him to friggin' Springfield and let him play down there. You don't let him sit in the box very often.
Yeah, and so I got to be, totally upfront here. Alex and I have talked about this on 101 ESPN, and I agree with what he says and what you're saying, that, Bolduc needs to play. But I think this gives us a tell as to what the Blues' thoughts are in terms of, they want to be competitive. They want to make the playoffs. So they're going to put the team on the ice that they feel has the best chance of them making the playoffs. And I think when we see that shift and you start to see, them look at a Zach Bolduc and say, we just need to, play him sink or swim, whatever, then that's kind of our sign of when they feel like, okay, this isn't the year, the injuries have hurt us. But let me say this. I, over the years, have witnessed players like Zach Bolduc come into the league. And the Blues have been a successful team, so it's always been hard to crack the lineup, right? But I have seen, and I'm struggling to come up with a name or two here. It'll happen as soon as we leave the podcast and I get in the car. But I have seen players have better careers when the team treats them like this and shows them that it's not just given to you. Every night that Zach Bolduc has to come off the ice for warm-ups and put that suit on and go up to the press box, it hurts. Mm-hmm. It hurts. And so you go out to that next practice and work that much harder.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so I'm also one, I don't want to ride both sides of the fence here. I'm one to believe that if you go out and you make mistakes, you definitely learn from those. And, at some point in this season, whether it's next week or a month from now, if it's clear that, look, this team has lost 7 in a row, it's not going to be able to get back into the playoff picture. You're still without your top guys for a while. Then they might get to a point where they say, you know what, the benefits of him playing and making mistakes are going to outweigh. But right now, I still feel like Doug Armstrong wants to make the playoffs. He said himself at the beginning of the year, look, we're tired of talking. We're going to go out and do it. And I think that's what their mindset is right now.
Well, the name that came to mind when you were explaining that, Robert Thomas.
Yeah.
Robert Thomas, that Cup season where he was a rookie, and it was like, I mean, you were a fuller team at that time, so it was a hard spot to get into. But there were multiple occasions where he would sit up in the press box for 3 or 4 games straight, and you'd be like, what's going on here? Send him back to juniors. But they said, nope, we feel like he's a pro player, and we want him to watch. And he would watch. He would sit right next to Steve Ott, and I remember talking with him about it. It would be, yeah, I'm seeing the game a little bit differently, and then you try and put it into play when you hit the ice. And remember, Robert Thomas played as a winger for the longest time. He wasn't even playing the center position.
That's right.
He had to work his way to being a centerman. So I'm under the impression of where the Blues, they are expected, or at least they put the expectation on themselves of being a playoff team. But when I look at their roster and you're not getting the offense, I mean, Brandon Saad was playing, yikes, I'm throwing things. Brandon Saad was playing on the 4th line last night. Like a couple of games ago against Washington, Bolduc and Kapanen were playing on your 3rd line and Saad was playing on your 2nd line. If you believe, and you saw it at the second half of the season last year with Zach Bolduc, to where he was creating more offense, you were giving a little bit more of a leash, and he would come away with something. One, Bolduc hasn't taken it, because a couple of games you've only seen 1 shot on goal, and this is a guy that's just got the shooter's mentality, shoot, 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 shoot. But on the flip side of it, is he really going to make an impact playing on your 4th line? It's pretty obvious they want their 4th line to play a certain style, and that's not Bolduc's style.
You're
now,
right.
Can he adapt that style? Sure, you want a guy to adapt other ways, but right now, when I'm looking at a top 6 to where like you're juggling everything around so much so that you're in the middle of one shift putting Sundqvist on the ice to win a faceoff so Buchnevich can be on the wing, and then getting him off the ice quick and bringing somebody out. At some point, do you just look at this and you're like, man, I know we need to compete. We're hoping to compete, but Bolduc might be the shot for us to compete if we just give him that chance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I understand the mentality. I understand the why part of this, but I guess another part of me is just like, he's a young kid. He's really talented. He's going to have to play to figure it out. I feel as though the more we get into this season, the idea of a playoff spot is a really lovely idea. It's like a lovely idea of me having a full head of hair again.
That's a lovely idea.
I guess the Blues have a way better chance of making the playoffs than I do having a full head of hair, but still, like, I just don't see it happening, and I would just like to see the kid get some
Well, I
time.
think they could probably get to that point. But the other thing, keep in mind, is that they could have easily just sent him to Springfield. And I know you said that, okay, let him go down there and play and let him, build it up and play well. But he's getting NHL practices here. It's not like he's sitting 10 games in a row. He's getting back in there, and they're talking to him, and the NHL coaches are working with him. And I don't know exactly what they're talking to him about, but for a while there it was, hey, we need you to shoot, and he was shooting. Look, I did a story on the line changes and the shift links.
Yeah.
I'm glad I said shift links.
No, it's fine. It's a podcast.
Yeah.
We'll cut it out.
Some of these shifts, you looked at Bolduc, and they were 50, 52 seconds. Like, they need to cut those down. So maybe they're talking to him about, those types of things. All these little details that they're talking to him about and telling them maybe why he's not in the lineup. 10, 15 years ago, I remember I'd talk to a player, and I'd say, hey, are the coaches talking to you about what you're doing right now? They just come up and say you're sitting. These guys today, they say, yeah, they're telling me X, Y, Z. So,
Yeah.
He's learning on the job here, and I agree that he does need to play. I'm just not opposed to the occasional healthy scratch or fourth line if that's what it takes.
I want to talk about the defense here for a second. First question is, any idea when Nick Leddy might be back? Is he skating? Is there?
He started skating with the team.
Oh,
yet,
wow.
or we
Yeah,
haven't
not with the
seen
team,
that.
yeah.
And Bannister has said that, like, until he skates with the team, he's day to day.
Yeah, so yesterday practice, the morning skate didn't start until 10:30. I had to get there at 9. I dropped my daughter off at school on the way to the rink, and I get there an hour and a half early. And here's how lazy I am. I'm at my computer working in the media room, and I hear, I'm like, oh, somebody's skating. Usually that's an injured guy. You know what? I'm too lazy to walk that 200 feet
That's
out
smart.
there and find out if it's Nick
But you
Leddy.
probably just did process of elimination. He's the only one that could be skating right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's Nick Leddy.
So,
Yeah, there's no way that it would be the other two at this particular stage.
So
of the
yeah,
game.
he's not skating. Obviously it's been a mystery because they were thinking that once he did come back, he'd be back relatively soon.
Yeah.
But appears to be lingering.
So at the, and I keep wanting to call him Gary Suter, which I think should tell you how old that I am. But Suter has had such a really tremendous year up until the last couple of games. It seems as though that age might be starting to catch up with him a little bit. Yay, nay?
Yeah, I mean, I thought last night was the first night to where it felt like, okay, might be tailing off a little bit here. And that's no, I mean, he's one of those guys that can get it right back just as much as he did. But, I mean, you can only expect so much from a 39-year-old playing 25 minutes a night because that's what he's been doing since Broberg went down.
Which is crazy.
In that Broberg game, he played like 28 minutes, and then it's been 25, 24, 23, 25. Like, they're the go-to line. And it just felt like, I mean, they were on the ice for 3 goals against last night. All 3 of those goals, it was Parayko and Suter. Some of them were turnovers that were odd-man rushes. The other were just lost men when they were going through the middle of the ice that find themselves wide open. But the problem is the Blues, you're in a spot where it doesn't matter if you're worn down. Like, you can't juggle anything. Like, you're not going to move Ryan Suter down to a third pair so he's not playing as many minutes a night because you're going to put Perunovic to play 25 minutes a night or P.O. Joseph. Like, you're stuck now. And this is just the injuries that are catching up with the Blues because Broberg, Leddy, Torrey Krug, like, you don't have these guys that can play 18, 19, 20 minutes a night.
Yeah, Suter's been good for him. And I realize, there's been some hiccups here. But we thought of him as a 6 or 7 D guy, right? Like, I thought there might be a chance that if they were healthy, that he might even be, the 7th guy every once in a while, not all the time. But so to get 24 minutes on him, the only thing is, he's a stopgap guy in the top pair. He's a 2 or 3 week guy. Like, I don't know that you get 4 or 6 weeks at 24 minutes. But otherwise, you got to give him and Doug Armstrong for bringing him in credit. Absolutely. Because it's been a good situation. All
right, what about Leo Loof? The Blues announced this morning that they have promoted Leo Loof, defenseman from Springfield, up to St. Louis. We going to see him in the lineup tomorrow? Do you suspect him to go into the lineup? Do you think he's going to be a healthy scratch kind of thing? And tell us about Leo Loof. He's got a cool name. I'll say that.
Yeah, real cool name.
Thought about my loofah this morning when I saw he was called up.
When they had the injury, they had the 5-game homestand coming up. So I thought they might bring in a defenseman, but they didn't really have to because you can get one here from Springfield if need be. But everybody stayed healthy, so they stayed with the 6th defenseman. But you're going on the road now, and you definitely want a 7th defenseman to take on the road. Anybody gets sick, nicked up, stuff like that. So Leo Loof is going to make his debut. I think the scouts like him. He's got a little bit of physicality. I think probably the skating needs a little work, but a good prospect. Do I think he's going to play? Probably not. It might just be that situation where you're bringing that extra defenseman just in case. You're not getting much ice time out of Perunovic and Kessel anyway. They're playing big minutes with those top 4 guys. Last night, that third pair, they did have a few hiccups, but I think that's to be expected. Do you get more out of a Loof in Buffalo, Boston, than you would a Perunovic or Kessel? I don't know that the Blues are looking at it that way.
Yeah, part of me was just thinking that you bring him up because you're on the road. You need to have an extra defenseman in case something happens, especially you have back-to-backs with Carolina and Boston. And then this just feels like roster asset management too, because if you bring up Tyler Tucker or Schoeneman, I think was the other one that they brought in the offseason, those guys have to clear waivers. And if you're bringing somebody up for 3 games and then you're going to send them back down, do you want to take a chance of somebody claiming them through waivers?
I do think they'll get the 10-game, 30-day, right? So they've already cleared waivers at the start of the season. They should be able to come up.
So they're good for the 30 days.
Should be able to come up, and then if they stay for 30 days or the 10 games, then
so you would keep them there up.
Yeah, so this, I know that Springfield's had some injury. Is Tyler Tucker banged up? I don't know that at the moment. But when we asked Drew Bannister last week about the defensive situation, he said, they had some injuries in Springfield. So I'd have to have a handle on that before we know why it was Leo Loof instead of one of those other guys.
Yeah, so that was my only thought process, and that obviously puts a change in things with those. But I was texting with somebody with the Thunderbirds, and they said, like, look, he's good when he uses his body, but sometimes he gets a little too patient with the puck. And you don't want to get too patient when you're taking on the Carolina Hurricanes or the Boston Bruins or the Buffalo Sabres because they'll put that in the back of your net. So I personally don't know if I'm expecting him. I think it's just going to be you've got this body in case something goes wrong. And then right now with this Blues team, you're just hoping nothing goes wrong for how the injuries have been.
Yeah, man, no more. And also, too, we talk about this a lot. This is something that I've said a zillion times in my time doing this podcast, but I'm going to say it again. I am so genuinely over the top, over the moon, thankful for Jordan Bennington. This friggin' guy, I don't know where this team would be. I don't know how many goddamn games we would have given up 8 goals in the last friggin' 3 years if it wasn't for this guy. I know he's not perfect. I know he has off games. I know he's not the best goalie in the league. I'm so happy he's ours.
Yeah.
I just love him so much, man. I mean, he kept him in it. I mean, he made some friggin' great goddamn saves last night, too, to keep him in it.
He did, and I got to say this, and we'll talk about Bennington here in 1 second, but, you scroll the social media feeds, and I was scrolling, it must have been Instagram the other day, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but it had the video of the Marc-Andre Fleury-Bennington maybe fight, and it's like, why didn't that happen?
What a night that was.
We would forever be missed out on a great memory that those two. I mean, when Marc-Andre Fleury, when they play the audio of it, and he says, "Come on, he wants to fight everybody. Let me go." It was great.
Yeah, I'm so frustrated that they stopped that. That was the moment you just let them go. Plus, NHL league wide is talking about that fight. Now, it probably doesn't look good on the Blues side because that's the antics Jordan Bennington, and you were already getting shellacked. But in the moment, I had flashbacks to Shovel Day and Cujo.
To take a left turn here real quick, is it possible that Fleury and Bennington are both goaltenders for Canada for the Four Nations thing?
I don't think Fleury.
Yeah, I don't think
Fleury probably wouldn't make it.
Yeah.
The only reason why I say it is because I was watching a thing with Carter Hutton the other day, and he suggested that maybe they go with three goaltenders, and that the third goaltender could be somebody that has a ton of experience, i.e. Fleury, i.e. Cam Talbot. Were the two names that he
I would
mentioned.
take Fleury over Talbot in a heartbeat, just because of, that's a big game performer. But the way that I've seen it is they're going to take Bennington, Aiden Hill, and then
Skinner.
It's going to be Skinner. I've heard the kid from Montreal, that Montembeault.
Yeah, Montembeault.
I've heard a ton of different younger names because, if you're in that situation, you want to make sure that all 3 goalies are available for you.
Yeah, and I think the third string goalie for Canada will probably play about as much as I do. So I think it's
a lot.
I think it's Bennington and Hill. They're probably the two guys. But hey, just to follow up on your comment about Bennington, you're right.
Sorry, man.
No, that game could have been 4-2 Boston, 10 minutes earlier. He kept a couple out of the net. I felt so bad for him. On that second one, when it gets in, the McAvoy shot, Bennington's arms just kind of go up in the air. You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
And the tough part here is, fortunately, there's smart people making these decisions on who's going to be the Four Nations goalie, and Doug Armstrong being one of them. But, if you're anybody who just kind of peruses the stats and you look at Bennington's save percentage after swallowing the 8 goals the other night, you're sitting there going, I don't know what his save percentage is right now, but you're looking at going, 896. He's our team Canada goal. But he's been great.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's you look at the stats. The stats don't back up what Bennington has been, because if you look at him, he's been probably an average goaltender. But if you watch what he's done with this team, for how bad the team was, specifically 2 years ago, and then last year where he was making 20 saves above average. He was one of the best goalies in that circumstance. Hey, he's the only guy that's keeping you alive in these games. The difference between where you sit right now in the playoff, in a playoff spot, which I know you're in November, think of the 3 points you left on the board. Getting to overtime versus Philly, getting to overtime against Utah, and getting overtime to Boston last night. That's 17 points. You're right there with the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. So that's Bennington. I felt bad for him on the Pasternak goal because, one, it's freaking pasta, and those shots are just as hard to stop as Ovechkin. But two, right before that goal, he made that save where it was Pavel Zacha standing right in front of the net and took a heavy wrist shot, and he made that save. That's where to me it was this is going overtime. And then Bennington, we'll see what happens. And then that Pasternak goal goes in where it's you think he has it, and then next thing you know, he's laying on the ice and everybody's celebrating.
I want to throw one more thing at you guys before we wrap up because I got to go be on the radio. What if...
There's the excuse again. I gotta be on the radio.
What if I said to you that I did not believe that at the end of the year, Winnipeg finishes as strong as they have started, which this start has been amazing. And I believe, hold on, that's part one. Part two, I believe that the Nashville Predators are the 2019 St. Louis Blues. Wow. I think that team is going to catch fire and go friggin' bananas. Tell me that I'm wrong.
With the Winnipeg Jets, but then you pulled that Predators trash out, and I'm like, oh, Jesus.
All right, tell me why I'm wrong.
My favorite part is he says, what would you think if I told you I don't think the Winnipeg Jets are going to go 80-2? That's what he said. He said, I don't think they're going to be as good as they are.
You don't think they're going to go 80-2?
Listen, I went to community college for 3.5 years. So that's the best. It's me. It's the best that I can give you. That's all I can say.
I was really hoping we would see an 80-2 season. Really hoping it.
You guys, man, don't be
the way it started.
You know what this is reminiscent of? Can I just be real with you? This is very reminiscent of Jamie Rivers and Jeff Burton teaming up to try to make me feel stupid. All right? I don't appreciate it even in the slightest. I love it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you love it, actually. I think I remember Jeff saying you liked that a little bit too much.
So tell me, what do you guys think? Is Winnipeg going to continue to be this friggin' good? And is Nashville?
Well,
and I know they played a little bit better lately, but do you think that that's gonna?
I think Nashville's trying to do what they did last year, to where Barry Trotz calls them out, and then they go on this run and they become this dominant team. And I don't think that's going to work. I don't believe Nashville's going. I think Nashville will figure it out, but I don't think Nashville is going to be this great dominant team for the rest of the season. I think they'll float around a playoff spot, but their goaltending hasn't been very good. Their defense has struggled. And right now, they got a lot of mouths that are trying to be fed on offense that just aren't having the success. I mean, Stamkos is about as snake-bitten as you can ask, and that's got to be a little bit of, oh, yeah, I'm going to go show Tampa Bay, and I'm in Nashville, I got the money, and it's not working out right now.
All right, here's my answer. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it.
That's actually more annoying than the Columbus Blue Jackets cannon. More annoying. JR absolutely seems like that guy, too, right?
Guys, I keep hearing in my head that Telemo Dew commercial. What is that? What's that whiskey? There's a whiskey, Telemo Dew or something. They played the commercial during the friggin' game last night 874 times. That is the first thing I thought of when I woke up this morning. Oh, yeah. It is just freaking Telemo Dew.
Telemo Dew?
Yeah, it's some kind of whiskey. In the commercial, they're like singing a song. It's just,
oh, yeah. And I worked at KMOX for the longest time, the 1-800-CARS-FOR-KIDS commercial would play.
Boy.
And then when you do Cardinals games, that commercial would play every single break through 9 innings.
Well, let me tell you this. However many times they played it, you did not have it as bad as I did, because during every stoppage and play, I got to listen to Alex. So he's sitting next to me.
He's true. I mean,
ladies and gentlemen,
one of those right now. Here, watch. Mic drop.
That very well could break that microphone, Alex.
Oh, yeah.
What are we doing?
Drew's over here. He's not really happy with me right now. What if I wiggle it a little bit more?
Hey, big shout out to Drew running the board for us on this particular episode of the Last Minute Blues podcast. Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN. Always just check out all of the work that Jeremy has done on The Athletic, covering your St. Louis Blues. For our boy Jeff Burton, who we think about so much, my name is Donnie Fandango. Let's go Blues, and thanks for listening to the Last Minute Blues podcast.
The Last Minute Blues podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com.